Hi, I'm Beth with TB Properties Buys Land. And last week we discussed whether if you had rural vacant land that you wished to sell, if your name was not on the deed, we answered the question of whether you could sell that property or not. And we discussed actually several different scenarios. One of the things I wanted to talk about this week was a few examples in which we had purchased property from sellers where their name was not on the deed. Now, one of the circumstances is where somebody had purchased the property and had never put it in their spouse's name, and they'd passed away onto the spouse. Something like that is fairly straightforward. Depending, every state or county is a little bit different in what they require, but for the most part, so long as the county in which the property exists has a copy of the death certificate, they can go ahead and write that through title and allow the spouse to convey that property, to sell that property to somebody else. Okay, so we've worked with spouses before in which they've sold property that they weren't on the name, they weren't on the deed, but they were able to sell that property. We've also purchased property before in which the property was in the name of a trust, or maybe it was left to somebody. The people are still alive, but it was in the name of a trust. It could be one person who was the executor of that trust, or it could be multiple people. So long as the title company that we're working through has paperwork, all the trust paperwork. And it can be a little bit frustrating because they tend to want the big packet. So they're going to want, if it's 50 pages or 100 pages, they need all of that paperwork from the executor of that estate in order to convey that property. But when you work through a title company like TB Properties Buys Land, you can trust that it's going to be done correctly. It might be a little frustrating getting all that paperwork to the title company, but they're going to be able to write the chain of title and allow you to convey that property and sell it to somebody else. Okay, we've had a couple other purchases in which we have purchased land where the name was in somebody else's name and they had passed away, and they were inherited, but they were not in a will. Well, let me just backtrack for a second. We did have it to where somebody had passed away. It was not in someone else's name, but it did go through probate. It was still, the will was still in probate. And this was a little bit difficult because it was hung up in probate. Now the gentleman was able to sell his land to us, and the money went back into the estate. So as soon as probate's taken care of, he'll receive those funds through probate. Again, working through a title company, we're confident that everything's gonna be done correctly and legally the right way. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to where we had been, someone had reached out to us, a family member, and said, hey, we've got land that we'd like to sell. This was in the name of a great-great-grandmother. And so it's in her name, but we've been keeping up the property taxes and we're ready to sell. Well, the big concern with this is how many other heirs are there? Okay, can we track them all down, and can we get them all to agree and to sign on a price and go through title? Well, in their case, they had four living heirs, and they were all in agreement on a purchase price. We had worked with them, come up with a purchase price that everybody agreed upon, and one of the group of four was kind of in charge, and they were in charge of getting everybody to sign and everybody to agree. And we were able to get paperwork out to all four of them. We sent them e-sign paperwork, and they did sign, and they all got their paperwork notarized and signed and sent in. Now, not always does this work out, but this was a case where we were able to buy property from this group of people in which the land was in somebody else's name. This was a couple generations back, and nothing had been remedied. There was no will, there was no probate or anything like that, and it was able to take place. So there are circumstances in which your name may not be on the deed, but you may be able to convey the property, may be able to sell that. Now, TB Properties Buys Land, we're not like every land investor out there. We do close through a title company. This is going to protect you as the seller. It protects us as well. We're also confident, both sides can be confident that they're going to do everything the right way. The paperwork's going to be right. And if you're trying to clear the chain of title in order to sell that property, they're the ones who'll be able to do it. If there are affidavits of heirship that need to be completed, like with the last example I gave you, they can do that kind of thing and make it right. Okay, if this was a spouse and your name wasn't on there, very easily they can explain what paperwork needs to be turned in so that they can clear that. And allow you to sell your property. So if you have any questions, if you've got rural vacant land and you're interested in selling, the land's in your name, or if the land's in somebody else's name, but you believe that you have a clear right to sell the property, reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions. Worst thing we can do is get the information from you and consult with the title company and see what we can do. We hope to work with you soon. Thank you again for listening. Take care.